Welcome to episode 201 of the Actual Astronomy Podcast. This is the Objects to Observe in the March 2022 Night Sky edition. I am Kirsten. Joining me is Shane. We are amateur astronomers who love looking up the night sky. And this podcast is for anyone else who likes going out under the stars. So were you able to get under the stars this week, Shane?
No, I was not. Our weather remains the same. Although Friday night, there was an opportunity to go out. It was relatively clear. I don't think conditions were outstanding by any stretch, but
No.
The issue for me was the work week caught up to me, and I was exhausted Friday night, so I did not go out. How about you?
Yeah, no, I ended up having a phone conversation with our observing friend Mike, and just chatting about setting up our observing for the next several months. So, that was good. Yeah, he had been wondering if I was going out, but I don't know. Maybe I have more clouds over my house or on this side of town or what. I don't know, because he asked if I was going out, and I kind of looked up and I could see a few stars, but there was broken high cumulus cloud overhead. So yeah, I wasn't going out. So anyway, let's maybe review. I started putting some bullet notes in here about just some general introductory stuff to astronomy. I think we did this last month too, but what are some good ways for people to get started in astronomy, and some really quick tools and techniques we can just give people for general advice before we hop into what people can see in the night sky this month?
So maybe the first thing I'll mention is a bit of a carryover from episode 200 when we spoke with Mary McIntyre. Probably one of the best things to state is that to do astronomy, you really don't need any equipment. You can just use your eyes. If you happen to have a pair of binoculars in your home, those can be used as well at night to show you a lot of interesting things. So the key takeaway to that point really is just don't think you certainly don't need hundreds or thousands of dollars worth of astronomy gear to enjoy the night sky. Some of the stuff that we'll talk about, we'll probably mention degrees, and this is a measurement superimposed onto the night sky that help us determine how far certain things are from each other. And one guide that applies to pretty much all of us is if you hold your fist out at arm's length, the width of your fist is about 10 degrees against the night sky. And because we're all built proportionately, it doesn't matter if if you have long arms or short arms or anything like that, chances are when you hold that fist out, it's going to be about 10 degrees.
Yeah, exactly. And I'll actually echo your remarks there on what Mary McIntyre was saying. And I know this episode's going out on the 365 days of astronomy as well. I know we get a lot more people tuning in for the Objects to Observe. But if you're one of those people that are just grabbing these episodes, I strongly recommend that you go and take a listen to our episode 200 with Mary McIntyre, because she talks about observing, just looking at the stars. She talks about astrophotography. She talks about public outreach. She talks about being involved in the UK Meteor Network. A lot of different really interesting topics. I gotta think there's pretty much something there for everybody in that last episode that we just recorded.
Yeah. Mary has as in general, astronomy is definitely, one of her big passions, and within astronomy, she does an awful lot of things that are really cool and very accessible to any amateur.
Yeah. And as well, like what you said about, her mention of not needing anything super fancy to do any of those aspects. And she kind of goes into a surprising amount of detail, considering we covered all of those topics. But she did mention, just taking the binoculars out, getting under a nice warm blanket, getting in the recliner, and just kind of getting lost in the night sky. I thought was a really great introduction for people that are looking just to get going. I mean, you can just do that and not really get too caught up in the pressure of trying to learn too much or trying to do too much under the night sky. That can just be really relaxing way to spend an evening.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Some other resources include things like Night Watch, which is a book by Terence Dickinson, really good for Northern Hemisphere people who are just looking to get started. And as well, Make Yourself a Little Red Light to preserve your night vision, because your cell phone is probably too bright if you're going out under dark skies, and then as well, like even the lights on the cell phones are way too bright for what you're going to need when you're doing astronomy. And then you can use averted vision. So what's averted vision, Shane?
When you don't look directly at an object. So when we say to use averted vision, what we're really saying is get your desired object in the field of view, but then look out, try to observe it with your peripheral vision. The way our eyes are, our peripherals are a little more sensitive to light and movement. So using your peripherals, sometimes you can tease out a little more detail, or sometimes fainter objects can become somewhat visible using that technique.
Yeah, cool. All right, well, let's jump in. Let's jump into March. What does March open with? What's a good thing to start the month of March with for us this month, Shane?
Well, March for folks, I don't know if this is also a Southern Hemisphere thing or not, but for sure in the Northern Hemisphere, the Messier Marathon is something that captivates a lot of amateur astronomers. Early in March or kind of around new moon is when you're able to observe nearly all of the Messier objects in one night. If you're well organized and you start pretty much right at sunset and observe till sunrise, you're able to get, I think, most of them in. Now, it is quite challenging to get all 110. I know, Chris, you've attempted this before, and I can't remember what your maximum was.
Yeah, I think, there's 110 objects, and I think myself and my observing partner, Graham, we were able to get like about 103, like working together. Like we kind of worked as a team, and I think he ended up hunting down about 60 odd or 70 odd. I hunted down about whatever it was, around 35 or so. But then in a few weeks, we're going to dive into this in more detail.
Yeah, exactly.
We're going to have Don McColtz on. He's going to talk about the Messier Marathon. He's one of the originators of this concept. And really looking forward to his conversation. We're also going to put that one out, I believe, on the 365 Days of Astronomy. So looking forward to that.
Yeah, that'll be awesome.
Yeah. We also have the zodiacal light is well visible starting right now, actually, in fact, end of February and into March, in the dark sky in March and early part of April. We're going to have this band of luminous light that's sort of in between, kind of sort of like the inner part of the solar system, in between, I guess it's like Mars and Jupiter. And a lot of that dust apparently comes from Mars, but they don't quite understand how it is originating from Mars. But Melody, who's on the observing committee, and I sit on the observing committee here in Canada, and she has sent out recently a great photo. I think her husband took it, but she sent out this photo that he took showing this beautiful band of light there, Shane. And she said we could tweet it out. So I think we just need to make sure we credit her husband. I think her husband's name is Bruce. So.
Okie dokie.
Yeah.
Definitely on Twitter, I've seen a lot of zodiacal light photos the last few days. In fact, again, Mary McIntyre, who was just on our last episode, she captured a really nice photo of it as well from the UK.
Cool. Yeah. Sounds good. I was looking at, did you ever look at Alan Dyer's website? Alan Dyer is one of the co-authors of the Backyard Astronomer's Guide. Did you ever go on his website and check that out?
Not that often. I usually again, I follow Alan on Twitter and he tweets out a lot of his activity, but no, I normally don't end up at his website. Oh
yeah. Well, that's probably where a lot of this stuff originates from. He has some like good synopses of what you can see each month. And on his website, he talks about how March represents really the beginning of aurora season. So he's looking forward to do some aurora photography. So, I guess we might be looking forward to some aurora in the coming months here.
Yeah, the activity on the sun is definitely ramping up, and the direct result of that is more aurora for us to observe. It's a blessing and a curse for us dark sky observers. It's quite pretty, but it can sometimes ruin a dark sky observing session because it can be so bright that it really washes out the sky. And, you and I have been in really dark locations when the aurora comes in, and when it's really bright, it like the sky almost resembles like an urban setting, like the stars disappear almost like they do under a light polluted sky.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it can you can go from being like seeing, magnitude 6.5 stars to down to fourth magnitude. I've seen that on a number of occasions. It just kind of obliterates any of the fainter stars. You can barely see the Milky Way that was, earlier, maybe in the evening, standing out. Yeah, it's sort of one of those things. And I guess, it makes sense. The other thing he put in there was that we get into the flashing geostationary satellite season as well, because, the angle of the Earth is changing, and the angle that the sun is going to be hitting those geostationary satellites in turn changes. So sometimes you get these brief and very bright flashes from the geostationary satellites, and look a little weird, like kind of like you're being winked at from space. I don't know if you've ever noticed those much before.
I don't know if I've ever seen one before. No, that's a lie. I have seen a couple where there's just a brightening in the sky, and it's like a star appears and then disappears almost. It's quite unique.
Yeah. I had an email here this morning. Dave Chapman, who's been on the show before and frequent friend and correspondent of the show, he'd sent in a sketch of, I think it was Venus, Mars, and the moon this morning. Sort of hanging around a tree, that was in front of a hill by his house. But really cool. And then all month we're going to have Venus, Mars, Mercury, and Saturn playing around in the morning twilight. Should be kind of pretty in these mornings. I've been watching Venus a little bit just with my unaided eye, and can see some of the other planets from time to time if I get into the right spot.
Yeah. I've seen Venus a number of times in the morning this week, on the way to work, as well as the moon. It's been quite pretty. It's been weird too. Like when I've been going to bed, it's been cloudy in the mornings, like around sunrise. It's been not too bad. The skies have been okay.
Yeah, cool. March 2nd, sort of getting into the days of the month now. March 2nd, we're going to have the new moon, but that morning of March 2nd, if you get up early, and I think I have 6 a.m. ish, between 6 a.m. and 7 a.m., depending on where you are, as probably about the best time to see this. That's when Mercury is going to be just about 0.7 degrees south of Saturn in the morning sky. So that could be kind of neat to see if you can get your telescope. They're going to be really close to the horizon, though.
What's really nice about that is Saturn will be easy to locate naked eye-ish. It'll be easy-ish. Mercury is a little tougher. And the fact that Mercury will be so close to Saturn makes it a good attempt. Like if you've never seen Mercury or you'd like to try to observe it, having Saturn as that anchor point will certainly assist you that morning. Yeah,
cool. And then on the 6th and 7th of March, we're going to have the crescent moon coming up in the west, because after the new moon, we get into the sort of first early phases of the next lunar cycle, and that's when the moon starts appearing in the western sky. At first, just makes a brief appearance in the dusk, and then eventually it starts moving into the darker skies, which is when it's going to be pairing up with Uranus around the 6th and 7th. So that's one of those things I always like to highlight for people, because it makes it very easy to track down some of the more difficult celestial bodies. In this case, Uranus is going to be very close to the moon on the 6th and 7th, because Uranus is only about magnitude 5.7, which is visible from a really light polluted sky through binoculars. But it's difficult to track down which star up there is Uranus when you're just kind of sort of panning around the sky, or even if you have a chart. But on the 6th and 7th of March, Uranus is going to be quite close to the moon there. So sort of one of the brighter stars that you're going to see near the moon, that's going to be Uranus on those nights. Do you ever do that? Do you ever try to hunt down Uranus when it's paired up with the moon, Shane?
Yeah, well, I like those close arrangements whether it's the moon and the planets or multiple planets together. Those are always really neat things to observe. I like them because not only does it help you find the object, but it is just quite pretty through binoculars or telescopes usually.
Yeah, and that'll make a good segue to March 8th, the following day, is when the moon is going to be sitting between the Pleiades and the Hyades. And so that was happening last month as well, I believe. And so what you're seeing here is the moon kind of sweeping across the night sky, sort of from night to night to night. And on March 8th, it's going to sit between these two of the most famous or most prominent, easy to see open clusters in the night sky, which are the Pleiades or the Messier 45 M45 open cluster, and the Hyades, which is a large open cluster, which basically forms the head of Taurus, the bull. And the moon's going to be sitting right between them. So if you're somebody that's maybe just learning the sky, you can use the moon on certain nights to kind of point out stars or planets or different star patterns, or in this case, a couple open clusters.
Yeah. And that'll be close to zenith, which means like right overhead, which is not fun with a telescope. It's sometimes hard with the movement of telescopes to observe right overhead. But both of those clusters are phenomenal through binoculars. And the fact that the moon is there, it makes it a pretty cool opportunity if you have binoculars, because binoculars to use when to look at objects right overhead is just, I find it a lot easier than a telescope.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it can be. Yeah, if you sit in the reclining chair and get into that blanket, it makes a perfect combination. On March 12th, we have the lunar straight wall. That evening, it's going to be visible on the lunar surface. So you've observed the lunar straight wall a few times before. I think maybe you showed it to me once. I think that's when I've seen it. I'm not as much of a lunar observer as you are, but any hints for people trying to take a look for the lunar straight wall there, Shane?
I've only looked at it through a telescope. I'm not sure if binoculars would be enough power to see this. But if you do have a telescope, put it on the moon on March the 12th, March 12th. It's a pretty hard object to miss. It's quite large in relation to, a lot of the smaller craters and other features to see. And the moon is, a very chaotic place, or a very chaotic surface. Like there's craters, there's ridges, there's plains, there's all sorts of stuff going on there. And all of a sudden there's this, what appears to be pretty much a perfectly straight black line. So it really stands out from all of the unevenness and strangeness of the moon. And that night it's going to be a pretty hard object to miss.
Yeah, I'm just trying to look it up here, and you probably would need some powerful binoculars. Like I know there's some 20 and 25 power binoculars out there. They would probably begin to show up, but just the regular handhelds, I think you're right. That would be a pretty difficult feat.
Yeah. Telescope would probably be the better choice there, or like you said, Chris, unless, or if you have some higher powered binoculars, that would probably do it. But most likely you'll need a telescope.
Yeah. On March 12th, also, if you get up early that morning, I guess I should have put this first, but early on the morning of March 12th, Venus is going to be just above Mars, and they're going to be in conjunction there. So they're going to be very, very close together. I forget what the exact distance is, but it's super close in the morning sky.
And again, this is another one of those anchor moments. Venus will be quite bright, Mars not as much, and this is one of the years of Mars. This is the opposition year. So in December, Mars will be at its closest point to Earth. And this is a 2-year event. So from this point forward, Mars will just continue to get closer, which means a little bit brighter and a little bit bigger. But at this point in time, it's still not any, it's going to be, fairly small. I wouldn't expect a lot of detail, if any, on Mars, but it's still a neat observation to see two planets that close.
Yeah, I think December 8th or around that day is when Mars is going to be at opposition. So just starting to come into the darker sky. And I don't know that you'd be able to see much detail on it now through a telescope, but in the coming summer months and especially into fall, that's when you'll get your best views of it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, on the March 18th, we're going to have the full moon. So that's something people can mark in their calendars and maybe go and take a look at it. I don't know if it's one of the super moons or any sort of special moon in any way, but that's when the full moon is going to happen. So I'm looking at taking a couple days off. I'm not going to take them off around that time. I'm going to wait for dark sky at the end of the month.
Yeah. For dark sky chasers, a full moon is a bad thing. Again, similar to my comment about the aurora, a full moon will make a dark sky very similar to an urban sky. Yeah. And in fact, not even a quarter to like a half illuminated moon almost washes out the entire sky as well. So it's a bright object, and when it's full, there's still a lot to observe. And I've been rightfully accused of of saying the moon's boring when it's full, and that's not true. There's an awful lot there.
Yeah, I think Mark Ricci or somebody like that called you out on that.
Yeah, and that was a good call out, because there is a lot to see there.
Yeah, no, it's good stuff. Yeah, one of the things you can see on the full moon when it's nice and clear out is it's called the Terby white spot, which is in sort of like the bottom, just kind of left of center. There's a brighter spot there. Now, sometimes people think it's a crater, but it's not. It's sort of like a bit of an optical illusion or something like that. It's what's called an albedo feature. It's just a bunch of different areas that are a little bit brighter than the rest of the surface, but it really sticks out as sort of a brightish spot on the moon.
Yeah. Well, and you and I have talked about this before, Chris, but sometimes like you can see some color in the moon, sometimes, shades of brownish, maybe even purple tones at times. So that's another thing to kind of pay attention to. Like there's a ton of craters and surface features to observe, but always pay attention to the color and just how that may change from night to night to night, or month to month to month.
Mm-hmm. Then on March 20th, we have a couple things taking place. March 20th is also going to be the date of the spring equinox. So what is the spring equinox or equinox, Shane?
I believe that's when the daylight and nighttime are equal. Is that not right? Like 12 hours each, I believe.
Yeah, that's equal day and night. That's what equinox means. So that's just when we reach that point in the Earth's orbit around the sun, when our tilt is such that we're getting equal day and night, no matter where you are on the surface of the Earth. And then, of course, that's the day that we lament because we start losing the dark skies.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a double-edged sword. Our cold winters are leaving us, but so are the long hours of darkness.
Yeah, and by the time we get to about June 1st around our parts here, we actually really don't even get much in the way of darkness at all for about a 5 or a 6 week period from about the 1st of June-ish until the about the end of the first week of July. We get not a whole lot of darkness there, right?
Yeah, we're just far enough north that the sun just kind of dips below the horizon, and it just never gets fully dark throughout the night. Yeah,
it's too bad. But on March 20th as well, if you get up early that morning, you can see Venus at greatest western elongation. So that western elongation means it's in the morning. Now, it doesn't mean that it's going to be highest in the sky, though, because I think it was highest in the morning sky the other day here at the end of February. But that just means that it's at its greatest point away from the sun. So it's still going to be visible well above the horizon in the morning sky. But certainly after that date, I think it gets a little bit lower progressively as the days go by.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Then on the 26th of March, we have the lunar Curtis X visible. I still haven't tracked this one down. Have you seen the lunar Curtis X before?
No, I have to be honest. The lunar Curtis X is new to me.
Yeah, I was just going to type it in here. I think it's sort of one of those features that's visible in and around the same time as the lunar X, but it comes like I said, just a few days later, because I think the lunar X is visible in some parts of the world, but it's not as visible in North America this month. But we have the lunar Curtis X visible, but I think the lunar Curtis X has greater visibility. But anyway, March 26th, Shane, if you want to go take a look, that's the night to take a look at it.
Yeah. I'm just looking online. I think it is also referenced as the Curtis Cross on the moon. And if anybody is interested in searching for some details, Curtis is Curtiss.
Oh, two S's.
Yeah, two S's. I'm seeing a lot of references to. So, I've never seen that one before. I will add that to my list.
Yeah, I'll have to take a look for that. Kind of an interesting thing that's often noted. I think it's a little bit larger than the Lunar X that we've often
Oh, okay.
seen in the past. So yeah, moving ahead on March 27th and 28th, there's a really neat moon and planetary triangle. I also saw this on Alan Dyer's website where we have Venus, Saturn, and Mars together. And then just sort of off to the right, we have this crescent moon. That's, I think, going to make a really interesting image if people are looking for a really nice portrait of three planets, I guess, plus the Earth's horizon, and then the moon in the morning sky. I think that's going to be a pretty cool, pretty picture to see.
Yeah, that would be really neat.
Yeah. And let's see, then on March 29th, Venus is going to be about 2 degrees away from Saturn. So Venus is going to just be 2 degrees north of Saturn. And so that makes them pretty close in the night sky. So that should be a very pretty picture to see as well.
Yeah, and 2 degrees, so that's well within pretty much any binocular field of view. And
Right.
Most telescopes will achieve that as well. Now, if you have maybe a larger Newtonian or a slower focal length telescope, 2 degrees might be a bit of a push, but for the most part, I think a lot of amateur telescopes will get that in one field of view.
Yep. Yeah, should be pretty neat to see in binoculars. I would head out with binoculars for this one just because yeah, they're going to be pretty low down, so you won't see much detail. But yeah, if you do have a telescope, anything smaller than about a 6-inch should give you a 2 degree field. So yeah, that should be a pretty nice field to see those two planets close together in the morning sky. Let's see, comets. We have a couple of comets. I was reading about these two comets. We have comet L3 Atlas, which is around 9th magnitude. I was looking last night at some sketches, just happened to be looking at sketches. And even though I made these notes up long before that, people were submitting sketches of L3 Atlas saying it looked really good in telescopes that are about 8 inches or larger. And it's right in around the bottom foot of Gemini.
Should be easy to locate. Those are, that's a fairly prominent constellation. Certainly would need a telescope, and like you said, probably a bit of a larger telescope, around 8 inches or more. And yeah, that hopefully some people are able to observe that. Comets are always interesting. One of the things about comets is they're usually never the same thing twice. Excuse me. Yeah, go ahead, Chris.
Okay, yeah, I was just going to say, yeah, no, you're exactly right there. And I thought you might need it to grab a drink of water. And yeah, we have lots of sketches starting to come in of Atlas. And even though, oftentimes, a 9th magnitude comet isn't something to write home about, people have been sketching a bit of a coma and a tail. Although it's faint, there's a lot of detail there. So if people are going out and they have, like I said, about an 8-inch or larger telescope, a lot of people are really saying, boy, it's well worth hunting down because there's more detail there than typically you would have in a 9th magnitude comet.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah. And one thing I noticed, I was sort of going through this, and just the way I lined up my software is that around the 26th of March, comet 19P Borrelli is going to be passing by the California Nebula. And then I noticed that in the software, it actually forecasted it to be much brighter than it is right now. It's coming in at 9th magnitude now as well, but it's going to pass right by the California Nebula there on or near the 26th of March. So if you have astronomy software, most people that have 8-inch and larger telescopes that are going to be interested in this, probably are going to have astronomy planetarium software and just kind of run it around that date for your location and then see what works best for you. But it'd be really cool if somebody took a photo of Comet Borrelli and the California Nebula. That'd be really neat up in Perseus.
Yeah, that would be phenomenal. I wonder what the moonrise and set times are that night, because that would be fun to observe that under a dark sky as well, visually, just to see what it looks like. I think a moon would probably ruin it if the moon's in the sky the whole night, but if we can get out when the moon is not there, I think that would be a lot of fun.
Yeah, well, that's about a week past, actually just over a week. It's 8 days past full moon.
Mm-hmm.
So the moon will be in the morning sky by that point in time. And because this is up in Perseus, and Perseus
Mm-hmm.
is pretty high all night here anyway. Yeah, in
We
the
should have.
evening. Yeah, you
Yeah.
should be able to get that in the evening. So don't have to get up in the morning like we were for the last comet. So yeah, pretty good.
Yeah. Awesome.
All right. How about did you find any minor planets worth looking at this month?
No, I did not. Did you?
Okay. No, I was kind of looking to see if any were at opposition that were worth looking at, and there just weren't any that
Nothing.
were coming up. And I didn't know if you had any double stars you might be looking to take a observation of this month, Shane.
Yeah, I'll talk about a constellation that doesn't get a lot of fanfare, which is Lynx. In fact, you and I haven't even really talked too much about this constellation, but there's some interesting multiple star systems to take a look at. One of them is known as 19 Lynx, or the Struve catalog number is 1062. It's actually a quad system. There's four stars there that are all connected gravitationally, and we call them double stars, but sometimes there's more than just two stars there to observe. They're all within reach of most amateur backyard telescopes. They're the separation is pretty, like, it's not very tight, so splitting them shouldn't be a real challenge. The thing that I will say, though, there's four stars there. Chances are most people will only see three. The C companion is quite faint. It's magnitude 12.8, so that one likely isn't reachable. But if you have a little bit larger of a telescope, probably in that probably 10 to 12 inch range, that's quite doable. The other one is Alpha Lynx, or the STT catalog number is 571. There's three stars here. Again, the third star, the C companion, is kind of dim. It's magnitude 11.1, but again, it's visible in most amateur telescopes. What is really cool about this system is that you have two contrasting star colors here. So the AB stars, which would be fairly easy in probably all backyard telescopes, actually. One is orange and one is blue. So at low power, because the separation is fairly large on these, at low power, you'll have them in the same field of view. And whenever you get two stars that are somewhat close together that have different colors, they really seem to stand out. The ability to compare and contrast the two colors seems stronger than if it was just, say, one orange star by itself. So to be able to see these two stars fairly close together is pretty cool. And that's it for doubles.
Yeah, cool. If you're up in Lynx, one of the neat things to take a look at, I don't know if you've ever looked at this before, I have a few times, is it's a globular cluster called NGC 2419, also known as the Caldwell 25 object. It was discovered by William Herschel in 1788. Just sort of looking that bit up, but I knew it was up there because I've looked at it. It was once thought to be sort of wandering in amongst the galaxies, thought to be the intergalactic wanderer. Was what it was called, because it was so far out of the plane of the Milky Way. It was since discovered that wasn't the case, but it's a ninth magnitude globular, so it's a little bit on the faint side again. Probably best in telescopes larger than 8 inches, but you can really get a look at a globular cluster that's really far away from the plane of the Milky Way. Like typically, globulars are going to be sort of hovering around in close to the Milky Way, but this one is pretty far offside and sort of in the realm of the galaxies. So anyway, just kind of makes an interesting object to look at.
Yeah, and what's kind of neat about that is again, Lynx doesn't get talked about a lot in astronomical, or at least in amateur conversations, but there's still a lot to see there. The sky is full of a lot of cool objects, and pull out any of the lists, and you're probably going to find some interesting stuff to take a look at.
Cool. Well, that sounds like a great place for us to wrap up, Shane, unless you have anything else to add.
No, that's everything, Chris.
All right. Well, I'll thank everybody for listening. Thank you, Shane, for joining me. And everybody, if you can, please subscribe, like, and send us a review in your podcast feeds. thanks again for listening.
Thank you everyone for listening, and we hope you enjoyed the show. If you are interested in more information, would like to contact us, or if you would like to support the podcast, check out our website, actualastronomy.com.